Audio Unleashed.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I don't think we figured out yet how we're going to start this thing, but like we don't have to be consistent anymore.
Okay.
So how do you want to start it?
We should have a brief thing of a brief synopsis of each story we're going to cover, just to get the audience excited,
Let's do that.
built up as a warm up.
Yeah.
So, do we start with that?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, I'm going to do the first story.
Wait a minute.
What?
Wait a minute. Who are you? Who are you? Do you mean to tell people who you are?
Tell me who I am.
Okay, you are Brent Butterworth. You're an industry legend, sir. You have worked in audio since 1990. So,
yeah,
God, that's a lot. I'm feeling old, man.
Kind of before that too, because I did studio work and stuff before that as a musician. So,
I mean, I'm talking about as an audio journalist. Yeah,
audio journalist since 1990.
So you've worked for Sounded Vision. You've worked for Home Theater Review. You've worked for Rob Report Home Entertainment. You've worked for Home Theater Magazine. You have done it all. You worked for Audio Express. And are you still writing for Audio Express? You're still writing for Audio Express.
I have an article I'm doing for him this weekend. So.
Yeah, very cool. So I don't think it. I think industry legend is probably underselling it. So.
Okay, you are Dennis Berger.
It's true.
This is the guy that you're listening to who has the good radio voice. The guy with the bad radio voice is Brent Butterworth. The guy with the good radio voice is Dennis Berger. And so,
the one who needs 3 times as much compression.
Dennis Berger has been an audio journalist for about 23 years. Yeah, I think. Yeah, and maybe a little longer.
I think I started in 98. But I was doing it for free, so I don't know if that really counted.
And he has written for DVD Angle. See how good my memory is?
That is, wow. You hopped in the Wayback Machine for that one.
And Home Entertainment Magazine, and Wirecutter, and Residential Systems, and is it Residential Tech Today? And Cinelux,
and Home Theater Review.
Oh, and Soundstage.
And Soundstage, yes. So I'm with Soundstage Access now. I'm the editor of that. I talk about high value audio. So and Home Theater.
So the first story we're going to talk about, I have titled München Baby, because München is German for Munich. Actually, I think it would be more accurate to say Munich is American or English for Munich. München, right?
Is it München or München?
I don't know. München, it has Ümlauts on it, like
Motorhead.
Umlauts
on it.
They stole that from Motorhead. Motley Crue. So we're going to look at, we didn't go, sadly. I have been a couple of times, but not this year. But we are going to, piggyback on some other people's coverage, because a lot of people did cover it, most notably Soundstage, Stereophile, and Hi-Fi Pig, although there are some others. And we're just going to cherry pick some of the products that we thought were cool or interesting or indicative of trends that you should know about. Yeah. And then our next story is going to be ba-boom.
Our next story is going to be a little bit of a weird one, because I think you and I usually talk about articles or reviews or what have you. I'd like to dig into an ongoing online, would we call it a rant or a crusade?
Yeah.
by Dr. Sean Olive, who has been taking Atmos music mixers to task lately for a problem that I remember you talking about quite a bit with surround sound music 20 years ago.
When I worked at Dolby.
When you worked at Dolby and after. And that is their reticence to put vocals in the center channel. I think we're both going to have a lot to say about that. Probably you more than me, as usual. But it's an interesting topic. It's an interesting conversation. It has, this ongoing rant of his has led to entire podcast episodes from the likes of Audioholics. So it's creating a lot of smoke, and I think we would be remiss not to talk about it as well. So what are we going to do? What are we going to wrap up with?
Our final thing is we're going to talk about, we have stumbled upon, actually one of my various managers I work with pointed out a website which is also indicative of a trend and probably not a good one. And the website is smartkarting.com. And as best as we can tell, not only does it appear to be entirely AI generated, it appears to have AI generated comments as well. So we're gonna tap into our deep knowledge of the publishing industry and two guys who've never really run a business and give our brilliant business insights into this, and probably a little bit more insight in terms of what it means for people that actually read these websites.
Yeah, good idea. So what do we want to do first, man?
Let's do Munich first.
I'm down with that. With that. So of all of the coverage that we've seen so far,
well, let's say what Munich is first.
Oh, let's do it. Yeah, go ahead.
Lovely town in Germany. The Munich. What are they calling this thing? They keep changing the names of these shows.
Isn't it
Munich high-end? Yeah. It is the best audio show in the world. I haven't been to all of them, but I've been to all of them that would be contenders. It's mostly high-end, but there's quite a bit of mass market stuff there as well. It's companies from all around the world. But we looked at everyone's reporting, and we found some interesting stuff. And I would say the most interesting thing I saw, it's on Soundstage Global, which is where Soundstage puts all their show reports. This article is by Jason Thorpe, who's like their turntable guy, kind of mostly. It's a system by ESD Acoustics, and it takes over an entire room. And it's all these different horn speakers that are, I guess, integrated together. I mean, a ton of amplifiers. And I'm trying to see how many. So there's per channel, there's 7 horns and 3 dynamic woofers. And some of these horns are like the size of a refrigerator or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're like, I mean, I'm looking at one of the horns, and it's that's got to be 7.5, 8 feet tall with a horn diameter of at least 3.5, 4 feet or something like that. Oh,
so there's dynamic woofers, like regular old subwoofers, right? But those only go up to 50 hertz. And then you have like a bass horn. And then you have like a mid bass to lower mid horn, and then you have a mid-range horn going from 500 to 2000. Then you have 2 tweeters and 2 super tweeters. They're all driven by field coils, right? Which is where normally with a speaker you have a permanent magnet, right? But field coils actually you have to plug them in, and so it's an electromagnet. This is very hip with the sort of retro, anti-modern audio crowd. Is it better? No, but it's something to talk about. It's more stuff to plug in. Therefore, better.
Yeah.
But it's really, and they just have a whole rack of amps. There's about how many amps are in this thing?
5 amps for each channel.
Yeah. So it's pretty astounding, and so the whole system is 3.6 million, but that's for the fancy Chinese lacquer version. It's a mere 1.08 million, and we're talking euros.
Euros, yeah.
From now on, we'll be talking euros until we get out of this segment.
Yeah. A euro is $1.07. So
okay, so it's $1. It's a buck.
So sorry for that digression.
All right. So anyway, it's millions of dollars, but Jason talks about it, and he says it sounds, not surprisingly, kind of humongous. That's not the word he used, but he kind of talks about just how well integrated all these speakers were, which actually doesn't surprise me, because some of these big horn things that you'll do where people have like 2 horns, 3 horns, they're spaced far apart. And when drivers are spaced far apart, there's some overlap between them. And so when they're both playing the same frequency, they tend to create cancellation patterns. Yeah. And then you get weird colorations. That's why if you have a speaker with a poorly designed crossover, it'll do that.
Yeah.
Or a crossover where the crossover points are not ideal for those drivers. But in this case, it sounds like they nailed it. And actually, once you have this many drivers, the interference starts to kind of get so randomized that you stop hearing it, in my experience.
Well, also there's a lot of the technology behind this is a little bit of a head scratcher, but I mean that I mean that not as a pejorative. I mean, you look at it and you're, wow, that's some interesting thinking that went behind this, because there are active crossovers feeding the amplifiers.
Yeah.
But interestingly, they're analog active crossovers. And, generally speaking, when you see active crossovers these days. You expect them
They're
to be
usually
digital, but
yeah.
these are analog active crossovers. But then here's the interesting thing:
That's the
amps. Yeah, the amps are Class A, producing 10 watts each. But in a fascinating twist, they're driven by switch mode power supplies, and which is like there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just like you're like, I didn't see that coming.
No,
like,
that's weird.
That is a twist.
Normally, switch mode power supplies like audiophiles run away from that. And audiophile, a lot of them will even combine like a Class D amp, which is basically like this, almost the same as a switch mode power supply. Yeah. They'll do a Class D amp with an analog power supply, the transformer and capacitors and stuff. That's really weird. I wanted also to talk about, there was on Hi-Fi Pig, on one of their articles which talked about NAIM, which is NAIM. It's a kind of legendary British manufacturer of like integrated amps and CD players and stuff. They have launched what they call the NAIT 50. That's NAIT 50, which is the 50th anniversary of their NAIT 1 amplifier they made like in the early 70s. And this thing is, did you look at this thing?
I did. The 50, by the way, is for the 50th anniversary. So
right, yeah. It's not 50 watts, or is it? I don't know. Actually, I don't know the power, but
no, it's not. It's not 50 watts.
But it's really, this thing is so retro looking and so cool, and yet so kind of modern. But it doesn't look. Normally we think of retro and we think of like dwell tubes, right? But this thing is a really clean design, and NAIM was kind of known for that way back in the day when people didn't have that. But now it's like you look at some NAIM amps and somebody else's amps, and they kind of look about the same. But this thing is really cool. It's a little kind of Euro modern style box, and it has 4 input buttons and a power button and a headphone jack and a volume control, and that's it. And it's like super clean. But you look at this thing, and you're like, it just looks like nothing else in the market, and it's tiny too. It's only it looks like it's only about 8 inches wide.
Yeah, I just looked up the specs on Audio Advice. Yeah, they rate the power output as 25 watts into 8 ohms at 0.1 THD plus noise, 40 watts into 4 ohms, and 60 watts into 2 ohms with 1% total harmonic distortion plus noise. So that's not,
and it's $3,500 $3,600. So it's not, in terms of like watts per dollar, that's not a great thing. But that's all most people really need.
Right.
Most people with most speakers only need 30 watts or something.
Yeah, if you've got a really difficult load to drive, the bass might thin out or something with some like the really
but no one's going to do that. You're going to hook these up to like some LS35As or some kind of classic old speaker, and this is a really cool product, though. Like I don't see a lot of integrated amps that catch my eye because they all kind of look the same now. Yeah. And they all kind of work the same. But this one was really, really cool. So that's on Hi-Fi Pig, and you can find it. It's dated May 18th.
Have you seen much of the discussion surrounding this one?
No. Is there discussion about this?
The NAIT. Every time I see somebody posting their show report, like centered on the NAIT 50 on Facebook or what have you, people are getting up in arms about the price. Like,
it's a little high.
Outrage. And it's funny. We are a hobby that typically is just like, oh, 30,000, that's a bargain. But people are griping about the $3,600 price really, really hard. But I mean, this thing looks,
it's a luxury good,
unlike a lot of stuff. And it's limited to 1,973 units. So
yeah.
I mean, if you want it, it's not like this thing isn't a commodity. You're not going to bop down to Best Buy and get it. So, I mean, look, maybe it is overpriced. If you think it's overpriced, don't buy it. But the outrage surrounding the price is funny to me. Given
I have my own outrage.
What are you outraged about?
I'm outraged that they're outraged. Because, look, it's an integrated amp, okay? I just tested a Dayton Audio integrated amp with tubes that measures great, doubles into 4 ohms, and it's about 50 watts into 8 and 100 into 4, and it looks cool, and it's got a built-in DAC, and it's got a phono pre, and it's $229. Okay, now would you hear a difference between that and the NAIM? If you did, it wouldn't be a big one.
No, probably
and
not,
and it's more functional. But so all those people that are upset that this thing's $3,600, go buy the Dayton Audio, and you will be fine. And then you can scoff at the people who spend. But this is a luxury. We're talking about luxury goods here.
Yeah,
the functionality of these high end audio products is, probably in most cases not, the added functionality, if any, is not commensurate with the price. Sorry, it's a luxury good. It's like a fancy watch. You don't buy. I mean, you don't complain that a nice Omega costs you $8,000 or whatever, and that's not even a super expensive watch. Yeah. It's like, you can go buy a watch for $20 at wherever, Walgreens, that that keeps probably better time. But come on, it's a luxury good. Yep. Nobody wants to wear the watch from Walgreens. So I wanted to talk also.
You don't know my life. I might want to wear the.
I know your life a little bit.
I know. I've got an Apple Watch. So
if you had the $20 watch from Walgreens had Chewbacca on it, you'd probably wear it.
Dang! Are you going to call me out like that?
Well,
wow.
I just went to a new dentist today, and I told her she said, "What kind of toothpaste do you use?" And I said, "The kind with Baby Yoda on the front." And she laughed and she said, "Well, that's fine."
How many out of how many dentists recommend it? That's what I want to know.
Every dentist should recommend the Baby Yoda toothpaste.
That's
true. Crest.
That's true.
And it's strawberry flavored.
Ooh.
So anyway, but I also, I was looking through Jason Victor Serenis' stuff on Stereophile. He's got a lot of coverage of Munich as well. Mm-hmm. And so much of his stuff is like all these, it's just so much of these like super expensive speakers. And I think this kind of, even though Munich is not supposed to be necessarily a high-end audio show, I mean, it is, it's high-end, but when I've gone there, I've always seen, headphones for $250, $300, from the Sennheisers and Sonys of the world and Bluetooth speakers and things like that. Right. Mm-hmm. But some of these speakers, I was caught by this one from Voxative, which is, they're reintroducing their first speaker, which is the Ampegio. And it's a single driver. And, it's got like a whizzer cone in the middle of it. And this is the big thing for the retro, as an esteemed audio critic friend of mine once put it, it's kind of a religious thing, because it's a single driver, and the idea is that you that eliminates all the sort of phase and interference problems you might have with a crossover, and blah blah something or another. I don't buy it, but if people like that, that's fine. But I was shocked because this thing they are introducing it. They're actually bringing it in at the same price as it originally was, which was $29,900. So it's the same price it was when they introduced it like 13 years ago. And this is a single driver in a big box. It's a beautifully finished big box with a piano finish, and that's expensive. And then you ship it, all that. But they have a new version that's $12,900. This is the new entry level version.
What a bargain.
$12,900, and it's the same speaker, but it has a paper cone driver instead of a wood cone driver. So for the wood cone driver, you are paying an extra $17,000.
Wow.
That's interesting to me. It's just fascinating to me that this market supports that sort of stuff. And then
made out of giant sequoia wood, or like what? That has got to be some valuable wood.
It's I don't know that it could be made out of platinum, and it wouldn't be, I think, worth that much. Yeah. But I was really like just shocked at that they would charge that much just for the fancier driver. And well, more, I was not shocked that they would charge that much. I was shocked that people, hey, look, man, if somebody's charging that much, somebody's paying that much.
Yeah.
Almost certainly these companies by and large know their market, and they know what they can sell and what they can't. Mm-hmm. But you go through all these speakers that Jason is looking at. He's got these Zelaton Plural Evo speakers that are $69,950 a pair. He's got the Rockport Orion, which is $133,000 to $143,000 a pair. And that in that room they had the Altus, the Absolair Altius Phonostage for $52,000.
Wait, back up.
The Absolair Altius Phonostage. This is a preamp that goes between your turntable and your preamp.
Yeah.
For $52,000.
Now I am assuming that this must be not US dollars. This must be some dollars from some third world nation that's going through crazy inflation, because 52,000 for a phono stage.
It's not the first phono stage that cost that much. I've seen others.
But it's just like, do people understand what a phono stage does?
Well, these are luxury products, people. These are not. Look, does that thing sound better than the $100, $200 phono stage you buy off of Amazon or on Audio Advisor? Like a project, one or Cambridge Audio or somebody like that. Does it sound better than those? Well, I don't know. It's probably got a lot more adjustability, and you can hear the differences when if you change the load impedance and stuff like that. Well, okay, you can hear stuff, and it's questionable. There's not, we don't have any evidence that that's any better. And I guarantee you, no evidence will ever be provided.
Yeah. I have to admit, it's like,
because why?
What?
Because
why?
all the people that cover audio pretty much are leashed, and we are audio
unleashed.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Please.
No, that's okay. I think I'm a bit of a weirdo when it comes to sticker outrage in audio.
Yeah, why?
Like, if you're going to touch it, if you're going to interact with it, if it's got a volume control in it or displays or whatever.
Yeah.
I have to admit there are certain things that I would look at it and go, maybe that's not a value for me, but fine. You want to spend $150,000 on that? That's fine. You're going to be touching it. You're going to be interacting it. Loudspeakers, transducers, whatever. It's kind of a statement. It's something that is a visual component of your room or what have you. And so, yeah, fine. But a freaking phono stage, I mean, you're never going to touch it, probably. You're not going to set it out in front of your rack in the middle of the room on risers like you might like a Dan D'Agostino amp or something like that. I mean, in all likelihood, this thing is going to be sort of, I don't know, blending into the background of your audio system. So it's just, I don't know why I get it's so irrationally angry at a $52,000 phono stage, but I do. It's like, it doesn't, you don't do anything. You don't touch it. You don't look at it. It's just, why? There's just, I don't know why. It's
I can tell you why.
Okay.
And having done some marketing work for some of these manufacturers, they sell that because that's what the market wants.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap this one up.
Let's do it.
Play some music, come back, and talk about Sean Olive's latest online rant.
Let's do it, baby. Welcome back to Audio Unleashed. Wait a minute, I did it backwards. You're supposed to do. Hey, hang on. Let's do that again, and you do the audio. And welcome back to
Audio
Unleashed. We are so
That's
stupid.
Some branding there, man.
Yeah. So anyway, doing something a little weird this time around. Instead of talking about an article or white paper or whatever, we're talking about the social medias. Specifically some Facebook and also Twitter posts. I'll probably link to the Twitter post since that's public, from Dr. Sean Olive, who has been on a bit of a tear lately. I mean, this is a long series of posts that he's been making about Atmos music and some of the demos that he's experienced recently in the Dolby Theater, in cars and things like that. And his displeasure with the fact that people mixing music for Dolby Atmos seem to be allergic to center speaker, or at least putting vocals in the center speaker. And, it resonated with me for two reasons. Number one, it's Sean Olive, and anything that he says is interesting because he's a very intelligent man, and he's got his finger on what's actually going on in terms of audio reproduction. But I have to admit, it stood out to me because a lot of what he's saying tracks with things that you were saying 20 years ago, 23 years ago about DVD audio and to a lesser degree SACD, and how people who were mixing music for 5.1 seemed at the time very hesitant to put vocals in the center speaker. So before we really dig too deeply into Sean's posts, let's back up and see if you can remember your thought processes from, a quarter century ago. Why was that such a big deal to you? Why was that a crusade for you? Because you talked about it a lot.
So I was in charge of marketing DVD audio for Dolby, and Dolby was one of the big companies really pushing this. And, DVD audio was a short-lived DVD format that had lossless audio, 5.1 channels on it. And it was a good format, but nobody wanted that. And there were other things bungled about it, but basically nobody wanted that because what else came out at the same time? The iPod. And everybody wanted that, including me. So the problem, or not with Dolby, with DVD audio, is so many of the mixes didn't have center channel in them. And it was just, left, right, lefts around, rights around, and an LFE channel for the low frequencies.
It was effectively quad 0.1 is what I called it.
And a lot of them didn't even use the LFE channel, so it was basically quad.
Yeah.
And the problem that we had is, we were doing demos of DVD audio at trade shows and things. And so all these things, as soon as you got off of the center, as soon as you were not equidistant from the front, left, and right speakers, the center channel image would pull to one side. And the whole stereo sound stage was skewed. We found enough to demo with, but there were so many that we couldn't demo with, and we were kind of mad because we're like, we could put this through ProLogic 2, which was our decoding, the matrix decoding technology at the time. We can put stereo through ProLogic 2 and get a better result than some of these professional mixers are getting with DVD audio. And apparently the same thing is, I haven't listened to that much Atmos music, and a lot of it I've listened to it on headphones. But apparently a lot of these mixers are doing this. Now they're continuing this practice, which I think is wrong. And it's wronger now than it was before.
Yeah.
And can you guess why?
Well, maybe I'm not picking up what you're laying down, but let me just give my perspective on why it's wronger now. One of the reasons it's wronger now is it's much easier to go to a good center speaker these days than it was 25 years ago.
That is exactly it. And 20 years ago, there were a lot of really crappy center speakers.
Well, there's still a lot of really crappy
ones, but there's so many good ones. If you want a good center speaker, almost whatever good, you're using a good, decent, normal set of speakers, not some, not a 14 horn system.
Yeah.
Just using some kind of normal speakers. You can get a very good center channel for them that matches the sound and that has fidelity comparable to that of the left and right speakers. No, you're dead on. So now there's less reason to do that. Home theater is an enthusiast pursuit now. It was a mainstream pursuit 20 years ago. Yep. Lots of people had it. Now it has kind of gotten to where it's kind of all about enthusiasts. It's about the people that read Audioholics, right?
Yeah.
And they do a great job of focusing on that market. But it's a relatively small market. That's why, so many of the receiver companies went out of business.
Yeah.
And that's why for, all these speaker companies now will have a center speaker, but that's not the focus of their business now.
Speaking to that real quick before we move on to the next point, Dr. Olive even made a post to that effect when I don't remember if this was on Twitter or Facebook or maybe on both. He showed his multi-channel system at home, and he was like, guys, look at this center speaker. I bought this center speaker. I want to use it for music, put vocals in there. So he's got a Revel C426BE, I think it is. Boy, I should have researched it. It's funny. Well, some of the people who've listened to the first episode are like, oh, Dennis and Brent are so great because they research everything. And I should have researched this. Yeah. But if I'm remembering correctly, so I was talking to a friend of mine recently who creates digital active speaker systems. And he was talking about how he uses the steep crossover slopes to control the dispersion. Long story short, just so he can do some of the things that he's doing with room acoustics. And I asked him, like, how hard would it be to do that with passive crossovers? And he was like, well, Revel does a really good job of it. So if I'm recalling correctly, like this Revel center speaker it's using like a third order low pass filter on the woofers, and then it's like a second order crossover between the mid and the tweeter.
Yeah.
The tweeter's over the mid. Like everything you could do in terms of crossover design, driver placement, cabinet design, the entire configuration. This center speaker, in terms of its tonality and dispersion, is every bit the equal of the tower speakers that it accompanies. So
yes. I dealt with these people face to face 20 years ago. I am 100% convinced that the reason that mixers don't use center channel is because they're not used to it. And this is audio. We get tied emotionally or for whatever reason to the way things were done before. And they're used to stereo. They're not used to having a center speaker. They just kind of don't know what to do with it. And so therefore it's bad.
Yeah.
The vocals generally are supposed to come from dead in front of you, no matter how you're listening to music. That's what singers are, the focus of your attention, and they should be there. If you've got a quad mix, like these guys are essentially doing, and you're off center, it's not going to sound like that. The vocals are going to pull to whatever side you're on, and it's just wrong. And they're saying also that they have to match the stereo master, but why doesn't your surround mix supposed to be better sounding? What's the point of having a surround mix if it's not somehow better than the stereo mix?
Right. Yeah, that was one of the points that David Frangioni made. He did a live stream with Audioholics. It was talking about basically you try to deviate too far from the stereo mix, and the labels will just kick it back to you and say, no, this is nope, not accepting it. This is too different. In a lot of cases, it seems to me that what Dr. Olive has come up with in terms of like a root answer to this is it's the record labels basically just not letting people put the vocals in the center speaker. So,
yeah, but I have to wonder how much the record labels care.
Yeah,
about the surround sound mix. Do they really care that much? Because typically the artists have not cared.
Some do very, very, very much. Some do very much. I have a story to tell about this.
Oh, okay. What?
And I don't know. I don't think I've ever told this story publicly, actually. So you mentioned DVD Angle earlier. I did a lot of DVD audio reviews for that publication. I would say at the time, I might have reviewed more DVD audio discs than anybody, right?
Ooh.
And Queens of Night at the Opera came out. 5.1 DVD audio. I got an advanced review copy of it before it hit store shelves. It was an unmitigated disaster. In like every way that a remix could be a disaster, the proportion between instruments was way off. The surround sound mixing was just the epitome of gimmick. It just sounded dreadful. And a representative for DTS, whom I will not name, basically told me, well, hey, man, Brian May sat in my living room and listened to this remix and just raved about it. And I'm like, well, then Brian May is wrong, right? But here's what's interesting. Brian May was not wrong, because after that, I decided I'm just going to go live with this review. Like, I know the objections. I know we're probably going to lose DTS as an advertiser. I know we'll probably never get to review a DVD audio disc from DTS ever again, but people need to know not to waste their money on this thing. And a few days later, I got an email from Brian May's assistant.
Ooh.
He's saying,
wow.
What is this? Like, what is like, Brian is asking me to ask you, what is 5.1 and what are they doing with the remix and what is DVD audio and all of this? And it's just like, can you give me more information? Can you tell me who did the remix? Can I get the liner notes from this disc? And I gave him all of that. And long story short, Brian May actually ended up flying to the US, sitting in the living room of the executive who said he had Brian May in his living room before, and they did a remix, and it actually sounded pretty good. But that is all simply to say there are some artists who do care, but they're so kept out of the loop that they might not even know that there is a multi-channel remix of their album being done. So
yeah, I mean, I interviewed Chris Squire from Yes one time, and because they had a sort of surround sound mix where some guys had roped them into this thing where they didn't even go back to the original tracks and remix it for surround. They took the stereo tracks, like basically ProLogic decoded them into 4 channels and then messed around with them and then put them back to 2 channels.
Wow.
So, he was kind of like, oh, you're the editor of a home theater magazine, yes? And I'm kind of like, it's not a great Chris Squire impression, but
I knew who you're doing.
Okay, but anyway, so I'm like, he's like, well, let me ask you some things.
Wow.
And they basically got roped into this by whatever company, and they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. I was basically like, no, what you guys need to do is you guys really need to do a dedicated, and this was 1990 something, so Dolby Digital only been out for a couple of years. I'm like, you guys really need to do some dedicated stuff because your stuff would really benefit from this. And lo and behold, eventually they got Steven Wilson to do the remixes on all their stuff, and he did a nice job. But they left it to him, and I'm sure they listened to it because it was Steven Wilson, and I'm guessing they liked it or whatever. But yeah, I mean, there's you can't always assume that the artist is in any way involved with the surround mix. But Sean raises another good point that we should mention, and that's that. And we used to harp on this point at Dolby all the time, is that when you have 2 speakers, as we were kind of mentioning before, when you have 2 speakers playing the same content, there will be interference effects between those speakers. Okay, at depending on the frequency and how far apart the speakers are spaced and stuff like that. Certainly, if they're 6 or 8 feet apart, there's going to be interference effects between those 2 speakers. You cannot get rid of them.
Yeah, there's also your head.
Your head. Yeah. So it does change the sound in is it a negative way? I don't know, but it's what we've gotten used to. And I mean, we don't hear that when we listen to stereo systems. We don't go, oh gosh, there's a dip at 1.5 kilohertz, which is what he's talking about here. But we're used to it. And so with a center speaker, you can make a center speaker like that Revel, which is, dead flat response. And it's not going to sound the same as a mono signal coming out of left and right speakers that are spaced 8 feet apart.
Correct.
Because of the interference effects. There's really no way you can have truly accurate vocal reproduction without a center speaker.
Let me ask you a question. There's probably, if I dug through this entire conversation and this gigantic conversation thread on Sean's Facebook page, maybe somebody's brought this point up, but it just occurred to me. There's a lot of Atmos music being consumed these days from Apple Music, from Tidal.
Yeah.
How much
Amazon.
How much of that is in room and how much of that is in headphones?
I would say, considering that it's still kind of hard to get it into your room, you need somebody might correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the only devices that will let you do that will let you stream Atmos into, say, an AV receiver that can decode it are Apple TV and the top of the line Roku.
And there's also, I think, one of the Amazon devices will.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, it probably would, since they're doing Atmos and have for quite some time.
Right.
Well, and of course, if you have the Echo Studio, it sort of decodes Atmos and does its own thing with that. And
there's also the new Sonos stuff. I just
that's true. Yeah,
I just got in this new Sonos stuff for Wirecutter. I'm doing an update to the multi-room wireless speaker guide, and the bigger one, the 300 whatever it is, it does Atmos as well. So
so there are speakers with it built in. An increasing number of wireless speakers have this built in. And there are ways to get into your system, but really not. It's pretty hard right now. You have to be kind of an enthusiast and knowledgeable, or you have to go buy that Sonos or the Echo Studio, which are going to have compromised versions of Atmos.
Mm-hmm.
Just they're one-piece speakers. They can't do something that's even close to what you're hearing in the studio. So very few people really are hearing something that is similar to what was mixed in the studio on the, typically they will have a 7.1.4 system.
Mm-hmm.
But I think so few people are really hearing Atmos on anything but headphones or like a one-piece speaker, and that's not real Atmos.
Yeah. But still, there's just no excuse they couldn't do a good center channel anyway. Good center channel mix.
No. If that question comes up, like if you have a receiver and you're getting Atmos music through the receiver from whatever streaming device you chose, sure you should have because you have a center speaker anyway for the movies. Because if you have an Atmos system, you're going to be doing mostly movies on it probably.
Mm-hmm.
You've already got the center speaker, and you know what? If you're a home theater enthusiast, you probably have a good center speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So why not? I mean, who do these guys think is listening to? I guess that's your point, is who do these producers and mixers think is listening to their Atmos mix?
Mm-hmm.
They're listening to it on a Sonos or listening to it on headphones.
Yeah.
So you're probably better off monitoring on something like the Sonos or like the Echo Studio or on a set of I'm sure they're monitoring it to some degree on headphones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you know what, dudes who make Atmos mixes, just put your center channel in there, but then monitor it through, just so that like people, the 5 people that are listening that way will get, so that Sean Olive will get good sound and he won't trash you on Facebook. And that's probably as important as anything.
Won't anyone think of Sean Olive?
Right. I know. Who will think of Sean Olive? But you're probably better off monitoring. You're probably better off getting one of these Sonos things and figuring out a way to hack into it to where you can plug your mixing board or whatever, your digital audio workstation straight into it.
Yeah.
And monitoring through that than you are through the center channel, because that's what people are going to be listening to.
Seems to me to be a good place to take a break. You want to take a break real quick?
Play more music.
Let's do it.
And switch to a completely different topic. All right, you ready to go? I'm ready.
Oh, man, I thought we were going already.
Are we going? All right. Well, so we're talking about smartcarding.com, which is a new website.
Yeah.
We think it's new. It's got a lot of content, though. Maybe it's been around for a while.
It's got a lot of content, yeah.
And it's one of these sort of sites that has, a lot of sort of reviews of stuff, and it's got affiliate links and everything so they can make some money. And it is the first, we all know that say CNET has used some AI to generate some copy, and we know that other publications I can attest that some other publications are looking into this because they've told me. And, but we look at this website, and you got to look at this and think, this is 100% AI generated.
Yeah. Because
the copy is so generic. I mean, here's a great thing. The benefits of a waterproof JBL speaker for outdoor adventures. Yeah. Now that is like so written to please an algorithm. That is so SEO driven.
Yep.
But But
we should define our terms here. Search engine optimization.
Optimization. Yes.
Yeah, it's what you do on the back end to please the algorithm. So Google goes, oh, okay, we're going to put your story ahead of somebody else's story because you've checked all the boxes that we think you should check. So
yeah. I'll read you the first paragraph, and Dennis, this will be your quiz.
Oh God.
Is this AI generated or not?
Oh, okay. Okay.
So there's a subhead: importance of music during outdoor activities. Music is an essential part of outdoor adventures. Whether you're hiking, camping, or spending a day at the beach, having music can make the experience more enjoyable. Music can help set the mood, provide motivation, and even keep you company during solo activities. A waterproof JBL speaker is an excellent option for outdoor activities as it provides high-quality sound and is durable enough to withstand the elements. So what do you think, Dennis? AI generated or not?
Not only do I think it's AI generated, I think it's poorly prompted. Like, I think if you
what is prompting?
Okay, so prompting, we are hypothesizing here that this publication is using something like ChatGPT, right, to generate their copy.
Yeah,
prompting is what you say to the chatbot to get it to generate a response. So, in other words, for something like that first paragraph, I might write, hey, generate me a paragraph of copy about the importance of music, especially when you're doing activities. Talk about waterproofing capabilities of different speakers and why that might be important. So that would be your prompt, right? And then the Chat GPT would come back and write sort of a professional sounding paragraph that is ticking all of the SEO boxes that hits all of the topics that I wanted to. Now, sometimes it's not going to get everything factually correct, but whatever. Yeah. It's going to generate copy similar to this, but the better you understand how the generative AI works. So perhaps I should explain my terms here. Generative AI is basically artificial intelligence that creates something. And in a lot of cases, the chat stuff, the large language models, as they're called, it's kind of not wholly dissimilar to the predictive text on an iPhone, right? When you see, like, you type a word and then it gives you 3 choices for your next word. It's sort of, that's the way it understands language, and it's putting together sentences like that. And often it's a lot of like 1-sentence paragraphs and things of that nature. But yeah, the better you understand how it works, then the better you can prompt it and the better results you can get. So, we're saying, yeah, we think this is probably large language model AI generated, but to me, it reads like, yeah, it's that, but it's not even very well done for that. Like, you could do a better job just by giving it a few more variables, putting a little bit more control on it, and being more specific about what you want. But truth is, they probably don't care. So,
yeah. So there's the best thing, though. This is just the most hilarious thing to me is there's an article titled "LG Smart TV Upgrade Your Home Theater." It's by Max Einstein, and Max. I'm not criticizing you.
I don't think Max Einstein is a real person, man.
I just want to make sure if Max Einstein is a real person, I'm not criticizing you. But he's not a real person. It's some dude.
No, Max Einstein is like a series of kids for books. Like, do you remember when we had the Scholastic? Do you remember when in school when like the Scholastic library thing would come and they would unfold this big thing and you would get to buy like a Lamborghini Countach poster and like a couple of paperbacks? Like, that's the Max Einstein is a series of books for that.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's a really totally fake name. So, all right. So here's another thing. So here's the coolest thing about this article. This is what I really admire about it in my own, perverse way. There's actually a comment on it that is obviously AI driven. It's by a guy named Jim Thomas. I recently read your article highlighting the LG Smart TV and its potential to upgrade the home theater experience, and I must say it piqued my interest. As technology continues to advance, smart TVs have become a popular choice for homeowners seeking enhanced entertainment options and seamless connectivity. And blah blah. It's basically like an ad for LG.
Yeah.
And now the people at LG, the good folks at LG, would be way too smart to post something like this on. I've seen a couple manufacturers jump in there and kind of promote their own products, but but those were very small, sort of high-end manufacturers who I have reservations about. But no major company would stoop to this. There's just no way. And it's just like, it reads like a press release. It's like it's the guy tacked on, or the whatever it is, tacked on basically an LG press release onto the end of this article that was just laudatory about whatever LG TV this is.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot imagine who would believe that. So I don't understand the business side of it. It's like, did they just figure, you know what, we don't care, we'll just crank out something or another and we'll put an affiliate link, and maybe 1 out of 100 person who clicks on it might actually go for it.
Well, but Google really likes to see comment sections, and it likes to see comments in them.
That's what it's engagement.
Okay. Yeah.
Although I see, here's one review by Michael A.
Mm-hmm.
Famed audio reviewer Michael A.
Yeah, I think I've had dinner with him before. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah, we got so drunk this one time at Cedia. But anyway, Sony WH-1000 XM5, a disappointing upgrade from the XM3 and XM4. I didn't read this one. Maybe it's an actual pan.
Is it though? Or is it just basically copying sort of thoughts from somewhere else?
Oh man, you know what? They played me. They totally played me.
Really?
What they're trying to do, now that I read the review is just like, oh, this Sony is fantastic and blah, 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 blah. Excellent sound. It's all this AI generated garbage.
Yeah.
But they suckered me in because they had a comment that looked like it was critical and legitimate.
Right.
But it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so they are actively working to fool people.
Yep.
Here.
Yep.
And,
so you were
and
asking,
that's not them. That's the bot that's working to fool people.
You were asking
people
before,
telling the bot, this is how to fool people.
Yeah. You were asking before how old this publication was. I just went to the sound and audio subcategory, which is one of 25 categories. I've got about 14 pages of content. So, and that's 10 a page. I think it's somewhere close to 150 articles in that category. And it's one of 25 categories. The oldest story in it is from April 23rd, 2023. There's no way that humans could have generated this much content in so short a time.
There's no way. There's absolutely no way. But I'm very happy to see that in their article, The History and Evolution of Bookshelf Speakers, they featured the Triangle Audio Borea BR03.
Nice.
Which they found out about by scanning one of my articles.
No doubt. No doubt. Wow.
There is no question, because that is not a speaker that is super well known. It's an extraordinary speaker. It's the best cheap bookshelf speaker you can buy.
Oh yeah. So let me ask you this. How do we, as audio journalists and writers and opinion writers, whatever you want to call us, how do we combat this? How do we compete with this? And I'll say on my end, like, I feel pretty confident that, SoundStage isn't going to replace me with a bot anytime soon. Now I will say we are using generative AI for some of the imagery.
You do that. You pioneered that. You did that before almost anybody.
And I work with our art director at Soundstage a lot, and I've included her because she's not going to lose her job or anything like that. But still, I wanted to include her in the process and make her part of the creative process of illustrating these stories, not just like me, her feel threatened by it. So my position at Soundstage, I feel, is pretty secure. But some of the more mainstream publications that I write for, I'm like, how do I arm myself against this? And the only way I know how to do it is to create very personality driven content, let my personality drive it, also knowledge and expertise, because these bots get a lot of stuff wrong. But the question is, if people are falling for this, and they obviously are, what do we do? How are you planning to compete with this?
No, because because retirement is in sight for me.
but if you were going to be around
kids, for good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, us whippersnappers. But yeah, I have to admit, this is a little bit more disturbing than the sort of listicle-driven, SEO-mandated, flavorless, vanilla writing that has been the norm for a lot of publications for, 10 years or something like that now?
Yeah.
I guess I really started to get concerned with it maybe in 2010 or something like that, when I was working for a publication who made me do that. Is this that much worse? No, but I have to say in this case, like, they don't have to pay anybody anything to do it. I mean, basically all you need is somebody prompting ChatGPT. So they're probably going up to the subscription tier on ChatGPT, and that's their expense. So that's the thing that makes it a little more threatening than SEO driven template based writing. But other than that, I've seen this coming for a long time, and whether it was human bots or AI bots writing it, I don't like it. And I wish readers would rebel against it a little more. I wish people would reject this wholesale. You know, I don't know why, but I always give you reasons to make fun of me. But as you know, and a lot of people might know, I'm big into Dungeons and Dragons. I'm big into Dungeons and Dragons, which amuses you to no end. And
it's fine.
I will say that the Dungeons and Dragons community as a whole has just said, we don't accept artificial intelligence, not in this community, not in this hobby, right? So Wizards of the Coast, which is owned by Hasbro, you know, Dungeons and Dragons is their most profitable venture, right? And so they have been floating ideas of generating artificial intelligence dungeon masters that you could just have an AI running your game. There have been people writing source books and adventures and things like that using AI generated art. And the community as a whole just said, nope, not happening. If you want artwork and you can't afford an artist and you can't draw a dang stick figure, but don't put AI in it. We don't want AI. And it's not any sort of like overall overarching rejection of technology. It's just like, they're like, no, the point of this is human interaction. So that kind of, you know, undermines all of that. But I wonder what it's going to take for people as a whole to just reject websites like this, to just go, nope, not having it. You don't want AI generated content. Or do they even know?
I think you'd have to be an idiot not to realize this is AI. Oh, by the way, I'm on their about page, and it says since 2016, Smart Carding has been writing honest reviews to help consumers.
Wow.
Except so you said they have no content that's older than like a month.
April 27th, 2023. Yeah.
So they're willing to lie. I feel so bad. Smart Carding people, nothing personal.
Probably smart carding person.
Yeah. Nothing personal that we say your website is garbage. But you know, your point is well taken that a lot of the websites that cover tech products have devolved into this, you know, very SEO driven, it may be perfectly fine if you want to help people buy a Bluetooth speaker. But, you know, I grew up with magazines and then later websites that were fun to read. And I loved reading them. And that's what I did for a living. And what you did for a living. Yeah. And I miss that. You can still get that. I mean, look, Stereophile still does that. Soundstage still does it. Absolute Sound still does it. And God knows I have my problems with some high-end audio publications. But they still at least will tell you a story and entertain you instead of just presenting you with buying information. And I guess for that reason, I hope high-end audio publications survive and thrive, and I hope that more writers come along to provide that. However, if you're getting into audio and video journalism now, you're going to go onto YouTube or whatever. Yeah. So
and maybe high-end audio is just niche enough that the AI is not going to bother, right? Is there enough of a margin for them to make? Because I mean, they've got to be able to sell their stuff online, and a lot of high-end audio stuff is not sold online.
True,
not available through ananybody who offers an affiliate program. So maybe they'll ignore our corner of the world for the most part, and just focus on.
I think they will.
You know, I was talking to Joe Mariano the other day on the phone, actually, and
Joe Mariano of what? Where's he from?
Daily Hi-Fi and Joe and Tell, YouTube.
On YouTube.
And Joe did this video about how he was frustrated with the fact that so many people, obviously, either don't know what they're talking about or they're not actually listening to the gear
video,
because they're just saying things that literally contradict reality, right? So, I mean, would it make much of a difference if an AI were writing what they're writing? Does it matter if it's wrong? If humans are already getting it wrong, then hell, why do the robots need to test it? They can just make crap up. I mean, people are already doing that.
And he's got a point. And look, high-end audio writing, I mean, high-end audio writing, most of it could be done by a bot. Yeah. It's the same crap over and over and over and over and over.
Chocolatey mid-range, inner detail.
All the same stuff. And that is my call to high-end audio writers is have a voice, man.
Yeah.
Or females too. Not there's that many of them. But, have a voice. Say something. Don't just sell fancy speakers.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's probably enough. I've said enough.
Yeah, I think we both have. Let's wrap this up, buddy.
Yeah. So who produced this thing?
Well, you and I did. Before we get into that, I want to give a shout out to a few friends if we can do that.
Oh.
So when we recorded our first episode, we didn't have a clue what we were going to do for the intro. The days followed, we worked that out. So people have heard now what our intro is, but I wanted to say my besties Mel and Jessamine did some voices for that. So when you hear the audio, those are my besties Jessamine and Mel.
Awesome.
And then once you did your guitar part for it, I was like, oh crap, that's great, but we need more voices. So our dear mutual friend Lauren also did some voices for it. She did a variety of voices. You'll hear some voices in there that sound like two completely different people. They're probably both Lauren. So big shout out to all three of them. Huge thanks. I think it sounded great. So, and I thought your guitar sounded great. It was so cool. So
just jacking around. But thank you. I'll take the compliment, but it's my first. I don't play with distortion because I'm a jazz guy. So it was me turning on a fuzz box and going like, what's this do?
Well, we should say this is a Butterburger production.
Butterburger production, yes.
Yeah.
And I think I'll mix this one.
Cool. And edit it?
Edit it, master it, mix it, do all that stuff.
Very
all
cool.
the things that we do until I find an AI program that does it all for me.
There are some. Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. You want to do this again in a couple of weeks?
Oh wait, who did the music?
You did?
I guess it's going to be all my music. Yeah.
Duh.
Oh, I have another piece of music from my friend Dave that we can use.
Oh, cool.
If you hear a saxophone on this, it's David Aaron.
Oh.
Of Short Memory, shortmemory.org in New York City.
All right, man. All right, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.